Anna Duggar's emotional speech at church leaves congregation silent and fans wondering why. Anna Duggar stood before her church congregation this past Sunday, her hands trembling slightly as she clutched the microphone, her voice quiet but steady. For a moment, the room was filled with the sound of soft breathing, shuffling, and the distant hum of the air conditioning. No one expected what came next. What began as a brief testimony turned into an emotional, heartfelt address that left everyone in silence. Those who were there described the moment as raw, honest, and unlike anything they had ever witnessed from her before. And as word of her emotional speech spread beyond the walls of that small Arkansas church, fans across the country began to wonder what had moved Anna Duggar to speak so openly, and why now? For years, Anna has been a figure caught between sympathy and scrutiny. Known first as the loyal wife of Josh Duggar, she became an unwilling public figure after her husband's legal troubles and imprisonment reshaped the course of her life. Through every storm, she remained publicly quiet, rarely breaking her composure or offering more than brief statements rooted in faith and forgiveness. But this time felt different. Those present at the service described a tone that carried a depth of emotion and reflection that seemed to have been building for years. Her speech wasn't about scandal or defense. It was about grace, endurance, and the weight of staying strong when the world expects you to break. According to those who attended, Anna began by sharing verses about forgiveness and the struggle of living through trials. Her voice, though soft, carried power. She spoke about learning to trust again, about finding identity not in circumstance but in faith. There were moments when her words trembled and moments when her eyes filled with tears, but she never stopped speaking. Congregants said the air in the room shifted, as if everyone collectively held their breath, afraid that even the smallest sound would interrupt something sacred. By the end, there wasn't a dry eye in sight. People didn't clap, they didn't cheer, they simply sat in reverent silence. What made this moment so moving wasn't just Anna's vulnerability, but her timing. For months, the Duggar family has remained relatively quiet, avoiding major public appearances or interviews. Yet here was Anna, standing not before a camera, but before her local faith community, allowing herself to be transparent in a way that felt deeply personal. For longtime observers of the Duggar family's journey, this speech felt like a turning point. A moment when years of silence finally gave way to a quiet but profound release. It reminded many that behind the headlines and controversies lies a woman who has endured unimaginable challenges while continuing to live out her beliefs in forgiveness, motherhood, and resilience. Members of the congregation who later spoke to local reporters described the experience as transformative. One attendee said that Anna's words were a testimony of strength and that it reminded her that faith isn't about perfection but perseverance. Others said they could see that Anna's heart was breaking, yet her faith remained unshaken. It's this tension between sorrow and strength that makes Anna's story so compelling. While the outside world often focuses on the family's controversies, moments like this reveal the human layers beneath the public image. Psychologists who specialize in trauma recovery note that public expressions of emotion, especially within a supportive faith environment, can serve as a form of healing. For Anna, who has lived under constant observation, this moment may have been one of release, a space where she could finally express grief, confusion, and gratitude all at once. Her words weren't a confession or an explanation, they were a reflection of survival. She reportedly spoke about the importance of finding peace even when life doesn't go according to plan. She talked about learning to forgive others but also the importance of forgiving oneself. The congregation later said it felt as if they were witnessing not just a speech, but a testimony of rediscovered purpose. The wider reaction from fans and viewers online has been a mix of compassion and introspection. For many, Anna's choice to speak publicly in such a vulnerable way struck a chord. Social media discussions quickly spread, not in judgment but in empathy. People related to her journey of endurance, of holding a family together amid pain, and of choosing silence when words would only add to chaos. Some noted that her faith-based resilience has made her a quiet example of strength, particularly for those who have faced personal betrayal or public shame. Others, however, expressed concern for her emotional well-being, hoping she is surrounded by genuine support rather than constant expectations to forgive without processing her own pain. From an analytical standpoint, Anna's speech also opens a broader conversation about faith and womanhood within religious families. Sociologists studying faith-based communities have long discussed how women in conservative environments often carry the emotional and spiritual burden of their family's reputation. Anna's words seem to subtly acknowledge this reality, though she never pointed fingers or shifted blame. Instead, she focused on the lessons of endurance and humility. Her message, while rooted in her own experience, resonated universally, that grace isn't about denying pain but transforming it. In the broader context of the Duggar family story, this moment stands as a quiet but significant shift. For years, public narratives about the Duggars were driven by patriarchal authority and collective image. But as time has passed, the women of the family, from Jill to Ginger, and now Anna, have begun finding their voices in their own unique ways. Each has faced criticism, yet each has also shown remarkable courage in defining what faith and strength mean for them personally. Anna's church speech joins this pattern, an unplanned but powerful moment of individuality and courage amid a legacy that often demanded silence. Those close to Anna say that she has become more reflective in recent months. Friends have noted that she spends much of her time focused on her children and her faith, seeking stability and meaning after years of turbulence. The church where she spoke has reportedly become a place of refuge, a small, supportive environment where she can exist not as a public figure, but simply as a woman of faith. Members describe her as humble, kind, and deeply devoted, often volunteering quietly and avoiding attention. That makes her emotional outpouring during the service all the more striking. It wasn't about publicity, it was about release, an honest moment of vulnerability before a community that had supported her through difficult times. As news of the event spread, commentators across media platforms began reflecting on the deeper significance of Anna's actions. In a culture that often equates strength with silence, her decision to speak with honesty and emotion challenges that notion. It reminds people that strength can also mean allowing oneself to be seen in pain. That message resonates far beyond one family or faith group. It touches on a universal truth: that healing begins when we stop pretending we are unbreakable. The emotional weight of her speech also raises broader questions about forgiveness and faith in public life. How does one remain committed to their beliefs when those beliefs are tested in the harshest ways? For Anna, forgiveness has always been central, but forgiveness is not the same as forgetting. Those who have followed her journey can sense that her faith has evolved, not weakened. She has moved from quiet compliance to reflective conviction, showing that forgiveness can coexist with wisdom, and that faith can mature through suffering rather than in spite of it. In the days following the event, photos surfaced showing Anna surrounded by church members offering quiet support. The images reflected a woman who, though weary, seemed lighter than before. Her expression suggested peace, perhaps even relief. The congregation's response, not loud applause but compassionate stillness, mirrored that energy. There was no spectacle, no fanfare, just a shared sense of humanity, of bearing witness to someone finding her voice again. Media ethicists observing the online response have pointed out that this moment marks a shift in how the public engages with figures from reality television backgrounds. Rather than consuming personal pain as entertainment, audiences are learning to respond with empathy. The discussions around Anna's speech have centered less on the past and more on the universal message of resilience and faith. That evolution says something encouraging about both her journey and the public's growing awareness of emotional boundaries. Thanks for watching.